My name is Chris Bramlage. I have been with C&E Sales for 24 years. I'm one of the owners of C&E, and I thank you for your business. If you're a current customer, if you're a prospect, I do hope you give us an opportunity to serve you. I'm going to be talking today about Motoman's HC10 DT. HC stands for Human Collaborative. 10 is the payload in kilograms, 22 pounds, 10 kilograms. DT is direct teach, and I'll show you what DT means as we get into the session a little bit here. But I thank you for your time this morning, and I'll hope to make it valuable for you. Talk a little bit about C&E Advanced Technologies. We were C&E Sales for 40 years, and to better reflect what we do, we changed our name to C&E Advanced Technologies. So our website is now ceadvancedtech.com, cenesales.com, cesales.com. Still works. You can get to us through that. And this is the coverage map of the area that we service. We currently have over 100 employees with 36 field salespeople, 14 staff engineers to help support the technical products, and a great customer service team. We recently hired a company to help us with a relaunch of our brand, and we did some interviews and polled a lot of customers and our people, our employees, and we came down to these core values that we really feel make a difference for C&E. We care about people, that's our people and your people. We always try and do the right thing. We never want to operate in the gray. We want to be black and white. We've got your back, so when something goes down, call us. We'll get you back going just as quickly as we can. And we look for the good all around us. That's in the people and the products, and just try to enjoy ourselves and each and every day. We have connections that keep people working. Getting into collaborative robots, I did a little research, and it appears that the first collaborative robot that I saw come on the scene was in 1956, and it was Robbie, and a movie called The Forbidden Planet. A little more current is Robot B9 from Lost in Space. Here he's shown with Dr. Smith. And for those of you who are a little older, the picture in the preview slides of me really doesn't reflect my current age. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, please connect with me on LinkedIn. But that shows you that I've been in the industry quite a while. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. But Danger Will Robinson was a famous line from this robot. But more in line with the automation, I think that the first collaborative robot that I was aware of that came into the industrial space was from Rethink Robotics, formerly Heartland Robotics. It was Baxter. Unfortunately, Baxter probably was launched before its time. It was pretty shaky, had a little palsy to it. Some venture capitalists had put their money into the company, and they determined when the product launch should occur, and it was probably a little ahead of when the product was ready to hit the market. And unfortunately, they probably launched too late a more robust product in the Sawyer, and they ended up going out of business last year in 2018. They closed their doors. But that was probably one of the first collaborative robots to hit the market. You've probably seen some of the others. Probably the most popular in the market today is the Universal Robots products. We have some experience at C&E with the Universal Robots products. We didn't find them as robust as an industrial robot, and that's really why we were moved to take on the Yaskawa Motoman product line. You'll see that the HC10 product is extremely robust. Those are all aluminum housings and just really well built, all industrial. And you'll have an opportunity, I'll talk about a couple of opportunities you'll have to see them in person live if you'd like to come to one of our upcoming events. But really, really nicely built piece of product. This is just part of the spec page from the HC10. You can download this from Motoman's website, or we can certainly provide you a copy. If you're interested, just contact us. You can contact me direct, cbramlage at ceadvancedtech.com, or use my old email address, cbramlage at cesales.com. This just shows you the reach, some of the connections, what the end of arm tool connection point looks like, and some of the overall dimensional shapes there. And you notice that the gaps in here are on purpose. That's so we can eliminate some of the pinch points. All of the fasteners that hold the caps on board have very small holes. That's so you can't get your finger in there and have them move and tear a finger off. Again, just trying to look for safety in the collaborative space. Just because a robot is labeled as collaborative doesn't mean you can throw it into any application and it will be safe. You still have to have quite a few considerations. The robot that we are taking around to the seminar series right now has like a bump cap on it for an end effector. So it's kind of inherently safe the way it's currently outfitted. But anytime you place something on that end effector or put some end of arm tooling on there, you may be creating some other hazards that need to be recognized during a risk assessment. Some of the ways that collaborative robots can be used are shown on this slide: stop-state monitoring, speed and separation monitoring, hand guiding, power and force limiting. All but power and force limiting can be accomplished in a wide variety of Motoman robots, and we handle a broad line of the Motoman robots. Power and force limiting, however, is significant in this discussion because it is available only in the HC10 product from Motoman. The rest of their product lines allow for all of those other modes using the functional safety unit, or FSU. It'll operate in all of those other collaborative modes. Just to kind of touch on some of the parts of a collaborative, here's a good example. You've got an area with a robot, and as people get closer and closer based on feedback from a laser scanner, then you can slow the robot down to a slow speed until you get really close to the robot, and then you can stop it. Again, if it's an HC10, then if you're in this area here and it bumps you and it exceeds the current setting for force limit, then it would stop the robot until you restarted it. Another way that the FSU, the functional safety unit, can work with any of the Motoman robots is controlling tool angle. So if you were having a strong laser device mounted on end of arm tooling, you could control it so that it's only pointing down at the work surface and not going to injure somebody on the plant floor. Those are just a couple of the examples. With the functional safety unit, you can create entire areas, walls, imaginary walls, cubes, places where the robot can or can't go, and what it can do in terms of speed in those different areas. So I recommend, if you have an application that's beyond the scope of the collaborative robots, don't give up on a semi-collaborative environment with your robot. Just consider other means of controlling the speed and or separation at which the robot is still safe to use around people. These are just some bullets from a class on the FSU. Motoman has a great series of classes that they teach at their headquarters in the Dayton area, and if you have used Motoman robots, you've probably already been to one of their classes, know what I'm talking about. I'm heading to one of their classes in a couple of weeks. I've been to one already and really enjoy their hands-on classroom format. If you want to know more about safety in general, you can go to Yaskawa and learn more about the functional safety units on their YouTube presentations. Do recommend those. They're very valuable. You do need to take the time to have a proper risk assessment when putting in a robot, whether it's collaborative or not. As soon as you add end-of-arm tooling and pick up parts that potentially have edges, sharp, could shear, put pressure on people, you really have to know how that robot is being employed in the workspace. Just because a robot is labeled collaborative doesn't mean you can plug it in, wheel it up to an area, program it, and have it start and run that application safely. You're responsible for creating a safe work environment for your employees, and a good risk assessment is a part of that. If you want to learn more about robots and safety, We are doing a series of seminars right now. We finished one Tuesday in Louisville, Kentucky. We've got upcoming ones next Tuesday in Columbus. And then we've got one on March 26th at our Nashville office. If you go to our homepage, you click on events and registration. You can look at the calendar and you can sign up for one of those events. We do have lunch included, but we spend a couple of hours talking about risk assessment and collaborative robot risk assessment, as well as risk assessment in general around equipment. We feed you lunch, and during that lunch period, we spend a little time talking about the banner safety products that are applicable for use around robots. And then at 1 o'clock, I get on and I talk a little bit about the Motoman HC10. We'll have one of those in the room. And the Mobile Industrial Robots platform. I'll have one of those in the room as well. Talk about how they program, which I'll cover some of in my session today. And then do some hands-on. So if you stick around after the 2 o'clock time frame, I'd be happy to have you do some hands-on with either of those robot systems. What really sets the HC10 and the new Smart series of Motoman robots apart is this Smart Pendant. It is the most intuitive pendant I've seen in use, especially if you've got someone who is new to robotic programming. There may be some of you out there that have programmed robots for a period of time. You're very familiar with a standard pendant, and you may be very fast with that standard pendant, and that may be the way you want to stick to programming robots from here on out. But take a little time, try out one of these Smart Pendants, and see if you really don't think it changes things. There's a lot of experienced people leaving the workforce, and we've got to find new tools to quickly make the newer people that are on our plant floors productive. And this pendant is certainly one of them. There's a video on the Smart Pendant you can go to. You might want to take a look at that. Very educational as to some of the things that you can do with it. But here's a picture of the Smart Pendant off on the left-hand side and a standard pendant on the right. Now, the HC10 and the other Smart series of robots from Motoman can be programmed with either one. So it's not one or the other. You can use either one. But most of my presentation today is going to be focused around the Smart Pendant and the use of the Smart Pendant to create a simple job. So the controller sitting on the table here is a HC10 microcontroller. And it has on top of it an FSU and a power and force limiting card. The connections here go back to the power and force limiting connections of the robot themselves. And this is a Smart Pendant laid on top of it. It's a very small unit. You can see it's sitting on this tabletop. It's a lot smaller than even the HC1000 box controller. And this controller can be used with all the way up to a GP25, a general purpose 25 kilogram robot. And those robots as well support this Smart Pendant programming. When I first started working with the HC10, just like any of you, I went to YouTube to try and figure out how to operate it so I didn't have to read all the instruction CDs that come with the robot. I think you get like 12 CDs that come with the robot. And I went to YouTube and I fell short on finding videos that allowed me to quickly learn how to create a program, changing security levels, changing power and force limiting profiles, hand guiding, all the things that I wanted to do with it. So I did what anybody does. They start recording their series of videos. And after I started creating the series of videos, I got requests from people and began to create some more videos. So do check out our page and that playlist. It's got quite a few videos on it, and I recommend you try some of those, especially since I'm not going to be showing you a robot live in this presentation. I just couldn't coordinate a camera system trying to look at the Smart Pendant and the robot all at once. I apologize for that shortcoming. But I'll send you a copy of this presentation. You'll be able to follow that link, or just go to YouTube, look for C&E Advanced Technologies, and then go to the playlist with robots, and you'll see all of the videos that I've created up to now. So this is the Smart Pendant home menu that I've got on the left-hand side. And if I click on that menu button, the menu that's shown in the middle of the screen pops up. So you've got security edit. That's where I change from standard edit mode to management mode to safety mode. And I'll jump into safety mode a little bit from now. And at that point in time, I'll change some power and force limiting profiles and show you how that works. But pretty easy, simple system to get into. I'm clicking on the job list, and when I click on job list, then you're brought to this right-hand portion of the screen, and you see this has got a variety of jobs already created, and I'm just 777 is the default job, but I could create a new job from this screen as well by just going up to the top center and selecting new job. And you can also go to program operate and create a new job. Just like Windows, there's a lot of ways to get to any of the functions inside of the programming environment. So if I'd go and create new job, there I am in another location, program operate new job. You'll see this screen pop up after you've selected new job, and you'll type in your name for the job. Can have any number of characters you'd like in there, and then you touch on create job. And after touching on create job, you're brought to this screen here with the start of the job, the end of the job, and then down here you've got a variety of buttons I'll jump into a little bit here. Down on the bottom left, you've got some digital I/O control. You've got variable controls. Right now I'm in the jogging screen, and you can see it's currently set up for joint jogging. And those of you who have worked with robots before, this is the base. They call the S axis, the swing axis. This is the base, lower arm, upper arm, etc., all the way up until the rotation of the wrist. So those are the separate axes themselves. Up here, you've got a lot of buttons here. Teach. Anytime you touch the teach button, the current robot's position is entered into your job as a move. And you can see right now it's selected as joint move, but there's all the standard linear move, circular move, spline move, etc. Here you've got some control for your digital I/O. Right there, easy to touch in. You can put in some timers, some wait statements. You can go into commands, and you can get to all the commands that are available for robotics programming. User frames, vision guiding, any of the high-ended command sets that can be used. So it's kind of the general layout. I'm going to continue and look at the jogging modes. Here I've opened up a screen showing the different jogging modes that are available. And as I said, it was currently in joint, XY world, XYZ tool, XYZ user frame, where you've created your own Cartesian coordinate system so that you can jog it about. Hand guiding, which is specific to the HC10 DT, and I'll talk more a little bit about hand guiding. And then Smart Frame is where this Smart Pendant really shines, and I'll dive into that as well. So here I'm going to go into the hand guiding mode. I've got 3 different methods to control hand guiding mode, and in any jogging mode I've got several different speeds. So if I'm touching up a point, trying to just creep along, I might move my speed way down here and ease up to a position. If I'm just jogging rapidly to general locations, I might have it way up high at the set point here. I'm going to just jump into a very short 24-second YouTube video that I've done on hand teaching, just so you get an idea. And
so when you are direct teaching, you push and hold the number 1 button down here. That puts it in the servo, follow your hand mode. And then when you press the teach button, it inserts a line of code into the programming with a joint move to the position where the robot is currently.
So what you see here is the robot in the same form that we bring it to our classes. We got a soft little bump cap on here. Again, we're trying not to hurt anybody during these classes since they're focused in on safety. And these 3 buttons are repeated on the other side of the wrist so that regardless of where you are in orientation to the robot itself, you can get to them. Again, as I said, you just press and hold the number 1 button and you can manipulate all of the joints. It's in a servo follow mode. And then once you get to that point, if you do hit the teach button, it inserts that particular location into your program as a point that it's going to go to. You also have the ability to toggle the end effector I/O through this number 2 button that's a part of that DT. So this collar right here with that teaching ability right on the unit makes this robot, the HC10 DT, or direct teach. So I hit that little teach button and it inserted this joint move, and it inserts it at an extremely low speed. So I just touch on the screen, touch on speed, and it pops up a little keyboard. Pop in keyboard value for whatever speed that I want to operate the move at. And I've also got this other information that I can fill in, how close I want to have it hit that position. And for those of you who are familiar with positional, if I'm going fast between 3 different points, it may not actually hit that second point as it makes an arc through to the 3rd point. But if I need it to accurately hit that 2nd point, I'll add a position level in there. I can also change acceleration and deceleration, which can be important when I'm doing power and force limiting. If I've got something in the end effector that affects the power and force that the whole robot system is sensing, and I have to be cognizant of that with my settings for my power and force limiting. And if I put a comment in there, then it'll add a comment to the end of that line, and you'll see that on the upcoming slides. One other thing you can do is if I'm touching up this point, I can jog the robot further to a point that mirrors where I really want it to be, and then I can hit this reteach button and it will modify that point. So it's pretty easy to touch up points within this system as well. Now I'm going to touch on the Smart Frame version of guiding, of jogging. So if I go on to this Smart Frame, then I bring up another screen that looks like this one here, and it says Mode, Smart Frame, and it has this verbiage: position yourself facing the front of the robot before pressing the calibrate button. So you literally hold this pendant in front of the robot, you touch the calibrate button. Now as you walk around the robot, you'll see that it updates position. In fact, you'll see right here I was about 90 degrees off from the original teach position. Why is that important? Well, it's this easy mode of teaching for people who aren't used to robotic programming and don't know their right-hand rule. If you're familiar with robot programming, I'm certain at one point in time you had your end effector stuck against a conveyor and you were desperately trying to remember whether you should move Z positive or Z negative to move it away from that conveyor versus plunging it deeper into that conveyor and having it locked up. With this programming interface, after I've calibrated it to the robot, as I touch this left and right button, it moves left or right as I'm facing it. So if I've calibrated and I'm standing in front of the robot and I hit the left button, that end of arm tool is going to move to my left or right or away from me or toward me and up and down regardless of Z minus and Z plus. As I move 90 degrees to that robot, it's still, when I press the away button, it's going to move away from me relative to my current location, my body relative to the robot. So these make it a whole lot easier than jogging in any other method that I've ever seen. And as I jog it to a position, I can simply touch the teach button and add a point. So it's an extremely easy product to be able to teach people how to program a robot. You can see where I've added a comment, pick position. I simply touch on this little gear icon after I've inserted a line using the teach button here on the pendant. And I've got all of those other things that I can fill in, speed, comments, etc. And so I've got this particular move commented. There's the home position. I've moved down to a pick position. And of course, at that point, then I would want to put in a digital output to fire my end effector to pick up a part. And all I have to do is click on digital out. It's going to insert a line of code just like this. If I need to have a different output turn on, I simply double click on that line. Dialog box pops up. I'm able to change to another output number, change it from on to off to on. Really quick and easy to do. So if you've used robots before, you know that as soon as you fire an end effector, you can't start the next move because that end effector has to act on the part, whether that's a vacuum or clamping or whatever means by which you're picking that part. So you always have a time delay after that to let that activity happen so that you've secured the part in the gripper. Again, to put a timer in after a digital output, you simply go down here on the interface, tap the timer button, and you've inserted a line. It'll come out with a very low timer value to begin with. You click on that, it opens up a dialog box, and you can immediately modify that time frame. Go down and see if I've got any questions. Doesn't look like I've got any questions yet, so we'll keep right on rolling. So you've got regular Windows buttons up here at the top. So at this point in time, I had just done this timer, so I've picked the part, I've grabbed the part, and generally after I grab the part, I'm going to return to my pre-pick position, this over the place position. So all I have to do is touch on that line of code to highlight it, touch this copy button, move down and select the line above where I want to insert that code. So I touch on this timer line here and hit the paste from the clipboard, and it inserts that same line of code with that same position into the job. So it makes it extremely quick and easy. After I go back up to that position, I may want to go over to the home position, and again, I could just go up and highlight this line here, do paste. So cut and copy and paste is extremely easy with this particular software. So here I've done just that. So I've got a joint move over the place position. I move down to the place position. I insert another digital output. I click on it to modify it. So digital output 1 now I'm turning off at that point. Again, I insert another timer using the timer button. That allows me time for it to be released, the part to be released from the gripper. And then I can lather, rinse, and repeat back up to my other positions. I go down to the bottom to my test run, and I've got continuous 1 cycle or step. So I can step through the program 1 move at a time, 1 full cycle of the job, or continually run the job. Of course, to do that, I need to take the selector switch from the programming position, which it's currently in this picture, and put it to the middle position. And then I can go and hit the run button. When I hit this run button, a little circle builds around the arrow, and it'll take off and run. In this case, it'll run for 1 cycle. Again, I recommend you go to our YouTube channel and you can see some of these things live in terms of running the program. Talk a little bit about power and force limiting now. First of all, in order to modify any power and force limiting settings, you have to have your security level set to safety. So I've got to be logged in at the safety level. I do that in the main menu by clicking on this button right here, the security edit. It'll bring up this interface here. And in this case, I click on safety and I put in the 16-digit safety code that comes with your robot, hit enter, and then I've got access to changing external force monitoring in the menu. So here's the external force monitoring screen here. You notice that I've got 2 profiles currently set up. I've got one that's enabled right now and one that's disabled right now. The one that is enabled right now, detect by TCP 100 newtons. The settings for that I've shown here in a live view. And these are pretty light settings. I usually use these during the class. So again, if somebody's operating it and they bump it or it bumps them, it shuts down immediately. Now, if I were to run a 100% speed move with these settings, I would most often have it cause it to stop itself because the acceleration itself exceeded these very low settings that I've currently got in this profile. So I've got a second profile set up with very high settings. So if someone says, hey, I really want to see this thing run at 100%, then I can back them away from it and run at 100% without causing anybody any trouble. I can also run this robot with all PFL disabled and use, again, external safety systems just like I would with any robot, whether those are laser scanners for zoning at different speeds or safety light curtains to actually stop the robot when you enter into a zone. We recently ordered a van so I can take this robot on the road. So if you have a desire for some activities and demonstrations at your facility, we can do that in the near future. I believe I'm going to pick this van up in Louisville on Monday. I've used Superior Van and Mobility. They're a group that specializes in handicapped people's vehicles, and I'm buying one from them because they can install the lift mechanism to help me load the robot into the van and travel around the tri-state. It's really all I wanted to cover today. If there's any questions, you can hit your chat box and I'd be happy to address those now. No questions? Well, I want to thank you very much for your attention today, and if I can be of assistance to you in any way, feel free to reach out to me directly or contact your salesperson, and they'd be happy to help you in your issue or arrange a demonstration either at our place or your place now that we've got the mobility. Thanks very much for attending. Have a fabulous day.